Good morning, beloved ones. Turn to someone and tell them, you look marvelous. You look marvelous. You look marvelous. You look marvelous. Wonderful, marvelous. And that's because we're seeing the Christ in them. You know, we're not looking at the outer shell, but we are seeing and beholding that divine presence that indwells us as the Christ. And we can see it on our faces. We can see the light. We can feel the love. There's a spirit moving in this place this morning. And I feel it touching hearts. I feel it opening us up and allowing that wellspring of love and joy and peace to come forth. I feel there's a releasing of the Spirit. So don't be surprised if you find yourself crying or laughing or shouting or rejoicing. It's just the movement of Spirit transforming you, touching you. Yes. Because, you know, we've been talking these past few weeks about transformation, about transforming the world, transforming ourselves. And we've spoken about how by far the greatest challenge perhaps is changing ourselves. And that once we are changed, then so goes the world, right? Once we are changed. But as I began to meditate on that concept, I thought there's a major challenge with that premise, although it is true. But the challenge that I see is that we are so wrapped up, or we can get so wrapped up in the world and in its effects, the effects of the world, that it is hard to break free from it, right? So that we're not only then in the world, but we then become of it. And we know that one of the directives that Jesus, the Christ, gave us was that we should learn how to be in the world, but what? Not of it. That's a directive, right? But you see, it's hard not to be of it when we are literally experiencing it every moment. Right? We're experiencing the world right now, the outer dimension, right here, right now. So it's hard sometimes to be free of this experience. So much so that we're actually hypnotized into believing that this experience that we are having is the primary reality, right? Because it feels and looks oh so real, right? We get up in the mornings, we drive to work, and the people that we see on our way in the cars are real. The traffic jams are real. When we get to work, we're met by colleagues and all of their needs and their requests and their demands that, of course, are appearing very real. We deal with that, and then we come home, and we come home to whether it's husbands, wives, partners, children, dogs, cats, parakeets, whatever. And their needs, right, that seem oh so real. And we have to somehow address those needs. We have to interact with them. And before you know it, our experience of the world and all of its inhabitants becomes something that we are engrossed in, that we are a part of. Our experience with the world and its inhabitants usually requires that we be fully present to them, right? Especially if you have children. Children want you to be what? Present to them. Your boss wants you to be present to the work. Your spouse, your friend, be present to me. Everything in the world is requiring that we somehow be fully present. And before you know it, we are not only in it, but we are of it. We are caught up in the world. And the truth be told that the majority of all of our suffering or our angst or our worries or our concerns, our stress, all the things that we're thinking about really are a part of and a result of our interactions and experiences of being in the world. So much so that we're in it and of it. And then we allow the outer world to dictate our inner experience. Even though we know that the spiritual edict says, as within, so without. But we have reversed that process, and it becomes for us, as without, so within. And we recognize that, yet we are caught up oftentimes in this loop. So much so that our inner world is very often consumed with what is going on in the outer world. Right? We're consumed with it. Conversations and interactions with others, we get very consumed in that activity. Even to the point that when the conversation is over or the interaction is over, we're still carrying it on. Right? We had it maybe 2 hours ago, but midnight we're still carrying the conversation. We're still interacting. The people are no longer in front of us, but we are really getting it. We're caught up in all of our tasks and our responsibilities that are facing us, the things that we know that are ours to do and that must be done by us. We're presented with the state of the world, and we're kind of concerned with that, or with current news and who's doing what and who was shot or who tricked who and what war is taking place and what's happening in the elections and who's running, all of that. We're occupied with how we're going to fulfill our personal needs and just how we're going to move forward in the future. What are our goals? What are our dreams? And how are we going to get there? How are we going to overcome the past, the things that have happened to us? And on and on and on and on and on we go. From the mundane to even the sublime. So the key then is to learn how to function in the world, to take care of what needs to be taken care of and addressed, because not to do so would mean that we're going to make a mess of our lives, right? This is why Jesus said you got to render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, meaning you got to do what is yours to do in the world. Children have to be fed and clothed. So we do what's ours to do in the world because not to do it is not an option. So we then figure out how can we do what is ours to do without somehow getting caught up. Because the essential and the more crucial element is not to allow yourself to become identified with what is going on in your world or with you. I'm not saying that you're not going to acknowledge it. I'm not saying that you're not going to address it and interact with it because, again, we must. But what I am saying is the spiritual key is to not somehow become identified with what is going on, not to see all of the activities and the responsibilities and the actions and the interactions as you, as the real of you. Because this can happen. We get waylaid and think, oh my God, this is me, this is what's happening, this is what I'm doing. See, real transformation will occur when you see that you are not what you do. And I'm not even talking about your profession, just you're not what you do. You're not even how you respond to your life. Because most of that is really habit and conditioned responses. Most of how you even respond to the world really isn't done with your conscious forethought. There are things that we've simply built into the neural pathways of our brain through repeated thoughts or repeated actions. So much so that they reach a point where now we don't even have to think about them anymore. We just react, right? We go on automatic pilot. We just have the same responses, and we don't even have to think about how to respond. We just respond. We somehow don't have to bring our conscious awareness to even what we're doing. We can drive home without conscious awareness. And I know we've all done that, right? I get home and it's like, wow, where was I? I don't even remember driving home. Thank God my car knows what to do. But we do this. We begin to automatically start living from an unconscious way. And so this is a condition that happens. And it's been borne out that we have grooved certain pathways in the brain where we don't have to think anymore. We just have to respond. And we're asleep to now our real selves. We are asleep to our true and divine selves. That now is in the background. So what will happen then is that we have to see that this real of us, this real self of us, is far deeper, far richer than anything that we can experience in the outer dimension. That it is even greater than your emotional or psychological world. The scripture says, greater is he that is within you than he that is in the world. And we think, oh, the greater that's in the world is somehow greater than the me that's me. Greater is that which is within you than that which is in the world. Turn to somebody and tell them, you are not who you think you are. Tell them you are greater than you can even imagine. You are greater than you can even imagine. Because you are the Christ of God. You're the Christ of God. Now, that can seem like a very scary statement, and sometimes people shrink back when we say that. Me? The Christ of God? You're a child of God. You're a joint heir with Christ. Paul said, have this same mind that is in Christ Jesus that is in you. Have the same mind, the same heart, the same spirit, the same energy, the same vibration. Where I am, you are also able to be. What I'm doing, you can also do. Greater than these things that I'm doing shall you do. So we cannot hesitate to say and to identify with our real divine self. Sons and daughters of the Most High. That's what we want to try to identify with. We are far greater than we can even imagine. Because when we truly begin to tap into our inner self, the inner self, our divine self, we will see beyond this little world and all of its demands and needs, because the world is so demanding. But when you are tapping into a different source, the vibration of who you were created to be, the vibration that created you, when you tap into that, all of a sudden there's an expansiveness to your beingness. See, there's a largeness to who you are. You are actually larger than your situations. You're larger than your circumstances. You're larger than the prognosis and the diagnosis. You're larger than all of that. When you tap into it, you tap into the greatness, not just of who you are, but who God is in and through and as you. It's powerful stuff, our spiritual nature. See, being of the world causes us to seek our identity and to seek our approval and our sense of acceptance from the world. Right? When you identify yourself with what is happening out here, you start to seek your approval, your sense of well-being from out here. So then we go around, do you love me? Am I okay? What am I doing? Is it right? All of this, we become out of focus, and we falsely begin to believe that if others do not accept us and approve of us, then that must mean that we are unacceptable. If others do not value us or value our beingness, we falsely then believe that we are not valuable. So much begins to hinge upon others and their thoughts and feelings about us that we forget that it is God whose approval and acceptance that the soul is really seeking. We forget that we are seeking after God, and we begin to look and search for that sense of fulfillment in the outer. And then we get lost in the world, and we not only are we in it, but we're lost in it, right? And then we're of it as well. And then transformation becomes far much more challenging. So the question that we want to be able to start to ask ourselves is, are we acceptable, but are we accepting? Because there'll always be people that even if you were able to dance on the head of a pin, who would somehow find that there's something not quite right about you. There's always going to be something that someone is going to see in you, your flaws or your imperfections or whatever it is, that's not quite right. So the question is not, am I acceptable, but whether or not I am accepting. Because you see, your transformation does not hinge upon whether others find you acceptable, but whether you are accepting of self, accepting of others, accepting of the world, accepting of God. Because it's not their character that is in question, but yours. It's not their consciousness that matters, but what? Yours. It's whether you will be able to take the high road or that higher journey that's going to lead you into becoming more Christ-like. It isn't about them, it is about you. This is the one time when you can say, you know what, it's about me. It's not about you, it's about me. So this is the task, this is the work. And it requires a forgetting of self, with a little s. The forgetting of self and the expanding or merging into one's higher self, one's greater self, one's individuality, which is your God self, as opposed to your personality, which is your egoic human nature aspect of self. You want to be an individuation of God. This is my personality. This is just how I am. Fine. That may be so, but is that how God created you? You know what I'm saying? We get very attached to our being and we'll defend it even when we know we're wrong. The personality will have us doing a whole bunch of stuff, and we have to have some sense of personality. It's what makes us different. But our individuality, that is our standing out from God. That is our existence, the coming forth from the divine. It is pure and it is wonderful. But it requires, you see, this journey that we're talking about is going to require something deep. It requires our greater self. It's what I call, I think, what St. Francis of Assisi, in his prayer, I think he really got it right and really was able to put us on a right path. I just read yesterday, I think it was, or this morning, that they're now saying that St. Francis didn't write this prayer. But you know what? It doesn't matter. See, because that is the trip of the mind. See, we're going to get into now, hung up on whether St. Francis really said it. We know it as the prayer of St. Francis of Assisi, so we'll let it be that. For those of you that are scholars and have said, well, it's not that, that's the trick of the mind. It does not matter. Let's listen to what he says, okay? He says this, Lord, make me an instrument. Now, you're going to be an instrument. That means you're going to be a channel. You're going to be, what does we say? Used. Functional. Make me an instrument of your peace. I don't just want peace. I want to be what? An instrument of peace. Of your peace. He says, then, where there is hatred, let me sow love. That means I want to be an instrument for love. Where there is injury, hurt, rejection, whatever, let me sow pardon, forgiveness. Where there is discord, harmony. Where there is error, truth. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. Then he says, O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console. Right? To be understood, and this is a biggie because we all want to be understood. But let me not seek to be understood as to understand. To be loved, not to be loved, that neediness, but as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. That's a powerful, wonderful prayer. So if we're going to become these instruments of God, instruments of God's peace, if we're going to finally really know how to be in the world and not of it, and be transformed from within, right? From within, we're going to have to learn about these qualities. We're going to have to learn how to express love, pardon, harmony, truth, faith, hope, light, and joy. And it says here that we're going to have to not begin to focus on the outer experiences that we are involved with. Doesn't mean we're not going to be involved. We have to interact, but we're not going to be focused and identified with them because they breed sometimes hatred, injury, discord, error, doubt, despair, darkness, and sadness. But there's that in us that equalizes all of that, right? So it's not about what they are doing. It's not about even our outer expression and experiences. And we have to get that because it loops us in, because we have experiences, because right now we're in an outer experience, listening and analyzing and thinking and hearing and judging, all that based on this experience. But it's not about that. But it really is about what is taking place within us, within our own emotions and thoughts and perceptions and feelings. And if we can really be with that, with what's taking place in me, see, we get distracted by what's taking place out there and my interaction. But if we can really be with what is taking place within me, not this automatic response, my automatic upset, my automatic joy, whatever, but what's taking place with me, and find somehow the higher principles and touch those, then we can finally learn how to be in the world, but not of it. To do that, you have to be aware of what is happening within you. The metaphor that came to me in my sleep this morning in my dreams was this. Because I said I wanted something practical that they could understand. And so this is what Spirit gave me. It's true that we need air and water and food to survive, right? The body needs air, it needs water, and it needs food. However, if water and food go down our windpipe, it will choke us for lack of what? Air. I want you to get this. So what happens is that when we are constantly feeding our mind with negativity and with thoughts about the outer experience of the world and life, it's like pouring water and food into the windpipes of our souls. See what I'm saying? Until all of a sudden we choke on the world. We choke, the Bible says, we choke on the cares of the world. Jesus gives a metaphor, too, about the farmer sowing good seeds, and he talks about how sometimes those seeds fall on rocky places, and they begin to choke the life out of that which is trying to grow up. And so we have to recognize that when we're constantly feeding the mind and the heart with negativity, with what's happening in the world, with your outer experience, who said what and what do they need, and all of this stuff, it begins to choke the very vitality and strength and hope that our soul needs to survive. We begin to be cut off from it. And the soul will shrivel and die when it is constantly focused on hatred, injury, discord, error, doubt, despair, darkness, or sadness. Those things take away the life and spirit of who we are. They are all things that come from the outer world, and they cause us to not only be in it, but to be of it. The Apostle Paul said this, and this is in Philippians 4. I'm going to read it first from the King James, and then I want to read it from the Message. This is Philippians 4, verses 4 through 9. He says, "Rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say, rejoice. Let your gentleness be known to all men, that the Lord is at hand. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." There's something about guarding your heart and your mind. Then he says, "Finally, brothers, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there is anything praiseworthy, meditate on these things. The things which you have learned and received and heard and saw in me, these do, and the God of peace will be with you." Now, this is how the Message puts it. Celebrate God all day, every day. I mean, revel in him. How many of you really revel in God? That's right, revel in him. Make it as clear as you can to all you meet that you're on their side, working with them and not against them. Help them see that the Master is about to arrive. He could show up any minute. Don't fret or worry. Instead of worrying, pray. Let petitions and praises shape your worries into prayers, letting God know your concerns. Before you know it, a sense of God's wholeness, everything coming together for good, will come and settle you down. It's wonderful what happens when Christ displaces worry at the center of your life. Summing it all up, friends, I'll say this. You'll do best by filling your minds and meditating on things true, noble, reputable, authentic, compelling, gracious, and the best, not the worst, for the beautiful, not the ugly, things to praise, not things to curse. Put into practice what you've learned from me and heard and saw and realized. Do that, and God, who makes everything work together, will work you into his most excellent harmonies. I love this because it's the key. See, to think on those inner qualities, this inner journey, it's the inner journey that matters the most. The journey of your soul's development, not whether you win this argument, not whether you get that promotion. All those things will take place in the world. Let that go. It's going to do its thing. But what matters most is what is happening in your spirit. What is happening to your spirit? Is it being fed the things that keep it alive? What about the journey from the head to the heart? As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. The world is filled with head trips and stuff, things to overcome, trials and tribulations. That is not going to go away. It is there. But when we allow ourselves to overcome them through our thoughts and we try to overcome them with our thinking and in our outer manipulations and our interactions. When we do it that way, we just get tangled up in it deeper and deeper and deeper. The key is to try to let go and to go within. to let others do what they're going to do. It doesn't mean that you don't take positive action and you don't step up and do what is right for you to do, but it means that you don't get tangled up in what they're doing. You begin to look at yourself. Look at yourself. You thought Halloween was scary? Look at yourself. It may be scary, but that's all right, because the truth is going to set you free. You're going to see some things that you don't like about yourself. Habits, tendencies, shortcomings, flaws, insecurities, false beliefs. But that is okay, because everybody has them. It's part of the human condition. See, we think only we have those things, but everybody has them. So we don't have to worry about that. You just have to be willing to see it. See it in yourself. You don't even have to do anything to try to fix it. The fixing of it is not yours. God is going to fix what God needs to fix in you. You just need to be willing to see it. And when you begin seeing it in yourself, don't give in to this thing that says, I need to make it the fault of somebody else. I'm this way because, well, these things may have happened to you. Our tendency is, but see, I'm like this because, and then we start to move out here. My childhood, my parents, my circumstances, my conditions, all those things may be true. But if you get trapped into that thinking, you will be stuck right there. So we just stay with seeing ourselves, seeing what's there, because you can't change others. And you really can't change yourself. It's the seeing of it, seeing yourself, that begins to change and transform. Because what you're doing is when you are seeing yourself, you are simply putting light on the dark places within you. And it is the light of God that heals. It's the light of God that automatically begins to fade that darkness into light. It transforms it into light. There's nothing that can dispel darkness except what? The light. So your job is to simply put light on yourself. There's no need to do so with guilt or shame or blame, because that's what we want. That's a trick of the mind. When you start saying, oh, I didn't do that, I feel bad about it. No. You have a healthy sense of knowing right from wrong. That's appropriate. But it's the extended beating and the guilt and the shame, and all that is not necessary. To see is to be free. To see is to have that light of God that will dissipate the darkness. And that's a marvelous way to be transformed. And once the darkness in you is gone, how brightly you will begin to shine. How brightly the light of God will begin to come forth through you. How brightly we'll begin to see the Christ in you. We can really say, well, I behold the Christ in you. Half the time we can't see it because we've got lamp shades on us, right? You can't see it in another because your eyes are filled with your own stuff. But as we begin to just shine that light brightly and focus on our inner qualities of being, our divine nature, all of a sudden you will find that answers start to come. Your seeing, your guidance becomes purer and clearer. Your actions become natural. There's a rising up that is natural without you trying and efforting. There's a natural grace that begins to come forth from you. There's a natural peace that starts to happen in you. There's a natural vibration that all of a sudden you start to change, and people around you begin to notice there's something different about you. There's something about the way you're showing up, and people will start to gravitate toward you. You don't even know what's happening, and they don't know what's happening. It's the vibration and the light and the love of God that is drawing unto you. God is drawing itself unto itself. Jesus said this, fear not. In the world you're going to have trials and tribulations, but I have overcome the world. We can overcome whatever is in us by not being in it, not being of it, but just being transformed by this wonderful light. It's this inner journey. If you truly want to be transformed, then you focus on your inner journey, your inner experiences, because that's what really matters. So I say, safe travels, traveling mercies. Namaste and blessings. Blessings. Namaste and blessings. Namaste.